Are we living in a simulation? That is the big question right now. There's a reason why it's called the simulation theory, and that is because, like most things, to be honest with you, you can never 100% prove something, but you can at least give compelling evidence and build up a case as to why something is more likely to be something than not. And the thing I like as well about a theory is if it can't be 100% proven, it means equally that you cannot disprove it, meaning that you should at least be open to the idea. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to go through many of the main reasons that to me suggest that we are living in a simulation. Hit the like button if you believe in the simulation theory, and also feel free to contribute any comments as to any of these that you resonate with particularly, or any theories of your own. So the first one is simply coincidences. Now, we call them coincidences because most people don't have another explanation for it. But have you ever thought of somebody that maybe you've not thought about for years, and then suddenly you bump into them into the street? This has happened to me multiple times. Instances where I've not seen somebody for something like 10 years, like people that I've worked with in the past, and then within the next 10 minutes I've bumped into them. This has happened to me multiple times. There was an instance where I was going to ask somebody that I used to go to college with if they wanted to be in a band, and I hadn't spoken to them for, I think that was about 3 years, and when I went to call them on the telephone, the phone was engaged, and the reason being was because they were trying to call me at exactly the same time for a completely different reason, as it happens. He was going to ask me if I wanted to go on his wedding stag do. And we just say, well, that's a coincidence. But could it be that we are controlling the simulation, so our thoughts are what are actually creating things? Now, the second is quantum physics. So this is where everything really comes into play, and that is in the same way as a computer game, it only creates the things that you are looking at that moment in time. So I'm looking forward and I can see grass, I can see trees, and obviously I can see a tree in the background, but that is because I'm observing it. It's the good old thing with trees, does it make a noise in the forest when it falls down? Because with nobody there to observe it, and that's the key thing. If no one is observing it, the simulation will not create it. And the argument against the simulation theory, many scientists will say, well, we haven't got the processing power to simulate an entire universe or an entire world. But it doesn't have to. You only have to simulate what you are looking at that moment in time. Again, the same as a computer game. It will only create or render the things that you are looking at. It will only render what's behind you when you turn around to see it and observe it. The next thing is maths. So pretty much everything in our planet, in our universe, is based on some type of mathematical calculations, which would suggest it is computer controlled, it is computer created. Time, density, mass, light, everything is all based on mathematics. Now, another one is what I call non-player characters. So in a computer game, if you're playing a game like Grand Theft Auto, let's say, and apologies if you don't play computer games, but as I'm sure you know, there'll be characters in a game that you interact with, but they're not real people. You are the main character, you're the person that's doing all of the controlling, and then there are these non-player characters that you interact with. Have you ever had conversations with people and I don't know, you feel like you know what's coming next, or they say something that you were thinking about? Or maybe you feel that conversations with people feel very scripted. And again, that would be the same way as how characters that you're not controlling in a game act. They're based on a certain script. So to give you the impression that they are kind of thinking for themselves. But the interesting thing about that is now with the advent of AI, the new Grand Theft Auto that's coming out next year, from what I've read, the characters can actually effectively, quote unquote, think for themselves. And they can go off and form their own groups, or they can decide to go off and rob a bank together, which is absolutely insane, which would be the perfect explanation as to what other people in your simulation are doing. They appear to be acting on their own, having their own free will, but are they actually, AI controlled? Now, you speak to anybody about the simulation theory and saying that we're in a computer controlled simulation, they will probably think you're absolutely crazy. Yet the theory, and it wasn't even called a theory when we were at school as to how the world came about, was the Big Bang theory. That everything started in this kind of ball of mass that's a tennis ball size somewhere in the universe. I don't know what it was sitting within, but it just decided one day to explode and expand outwards from that single point. And that is the explanation for everything that you see, every person, everything that you interact with. That all came from a tennis ball size mass that just exploded, and then it just created everything. And that is what we were led to believe. I think even at the time I thought that sounds pretty crazy, but you just went along with it because that's what the teacher told you. So you just kind of assumed that that was gospel. Wouldn't it make more sense that what actually was the beginning of time was somebody running the program? They created a simulation. They hit run, type run, hit enter on the keyboard, and that was actually the beginning of time. To me, that makes a lot more logical sense. Then you've got déjà vu. So there are times when you experience something and you feel like you've been there before. Like in the movie The Matrix, Neo, the main character, sees a cat and it sort of shakes, and then 2 or 3 seconds later he sees it do exactly the same thing. Now we think it's because we've maybe been there before, or it's just similar, but it can be that in a computer program, sometimes things will loop. A lot of things are based on loops, and it will kind of get stuck and it will repeat the same thing again. So that could be a more logical reason why we experience déjà vu, is because it literally happened seconds ago, and then our conscious part of our brain processes it after our subconscious, making it feel like it's happened before. Now, another thing very, very, very closely related to computers is a computer. The way it stores information is and calculates information is based on a storage of ones and zeros, binary code. So each of those is called a bit, and then 8 of those, a collection of 8 bits, is called a byte. 1,000 bytes is a megabyte, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now our DNA is effectively a collection of ones and zeros that makes up our character, makes up our body. So that again is, if that is not compelling reason that we are effectively computer code, I don't know what is. And talking of computer code, even scarier than that is there was a set of scientists that worked for Barack Obama, and their job was effectively to try and come up with formulas that explained this expansion of the universe and how things are, and distances between planets and solar systems. And what they found was it was actually not just similar but identical to computer code, and not just computer code, but computer code that is used for creating web browsers. So we are potentially living just in a big web browser. When I first read that, or I first saw that on a video on YouTube, it basically, I mean, it really kind of scared me. You know, I thought, oh my God, you know, it's just unbelievable to think that we could be in this code, you know, this piece of software that effectively people who could be running the simulation are using to see, you know, how we react, how we behave. And that is effectively what a simulation is. And through the advent of VR, virtual reality, it is now getting to the point where you will put on VR goggles. There's a new one that's being tested by Meta, and you can't see the rims of the glasses, which is something that would normally break immersion because it looks like you're looking through goggles. But with this new one, because you can't see that, when you put them on, and the graphics and resolution are so good that you cannot distinguish, your brain thinks you're in a real world rather than a simulation, which isn't that effectively like, could be like what we're in right now. And last but not least is the fact that atoms, so we think everything is solid. This tree, when I touch it, it feels solid. But an atom that effectively makes everything up is 99.99999% air. There's just nothing to it. We are effectively holograms. We're just a projection, which would suggest that the real beings, the real us, is outside of this simulation, and we are just a projection. We are just being controlled by a simulation. So to me, that, I mean, you know, and I could go on, there are many other theories, but this to me is compelling evidence that would suggest we are living in a simulation. So hit like if you enjoyed this video, if you've got anything out of it, and please leave a comment and subscribe if you haven't already. And I would love to hear your thoughts. So thanks for watching, take care, I'll speak to you soon.